I'm Nisha Tandon. I am a water, urban, and climate change sector expert. And this is the webinar series that we are holding on water through Sustainability and Adaptation Planning Foundation in partnership with CREST. We This particular webinar is a continuation of the previous webinar that we had in June. So I don't know how many of you here have been able to attend the previous webinar, but if you haven't, we have a recap session, and we also will be sharing the YouTube link of the previous webinar. So after this, you can join that and attend that webinar on YouTube as well. Like the last session, we had discussion on integrated water resource management and multi-stakeholder platforms. So the discussion on integrated water resource management was by me, Nisha Tandon, and the second session was by Ms. Annalie Indaninga. So we'll have a short recap there. And today we have Mr. Anand Malligawad with us, who has taken an initiative to revive a lot of lakes in Bangalore and in other cities as well. And recently he also left his job to fulfill his commitment towards the environment, and that I think is highly appreciable, and it takes a lot of guts to do that. So hats off to you for that. What we also are, like last time we had a full session, and we had attendees from around 35 countries. This time also we have a full session, and I counted only halfway, and it was from 45 countries. So I don't know how many countries have added after that, but I also don't know how many of those are in this time zone to be able to attend it. But let's hope most of them can attend, and if they can't, I'll be sharing the YouTube link. So let's start with the first session on IWRM, and I'm going to share my screen. So I am going to, so basically we'll have two sessions here, one by Mr. Anand Malligawad and one by me. He'll be talking about lake conservation, and then we'll have a question answer session. Then about my organization. So this is Sustainability and Adaptation Planning Foundation, and we work towards climate awareness amongst youth and students. We've done training programs with around 40 schools and college students so far, and won some awards as well. In today's presentation, we'll do a quick recap of the last webinar. We'll talk about the need for IWRM-based approach, looking from the climate perspectives and the potential solution pathways and some case studies. And similarly, we'll look at integrated water resource management and the climate perspectives. So let's do a quick recap. I want you to see this presentation and look at the area that is highlighted, and I'll change the image and see the change that comes about in this. So can you see how the tributaries to the main channel have disappeared? Now this has a lot of disadvantages, because once your lakes and ponds and smaller tributaries from the catchment area are gone, then you have a problem related to water storage. So whenever your runoff is generated, it's going to directly enter your main channel and cause flooding downstream. Then this can also lead to a lot of deepening of your channel, and your catchment water table is also going to decline because there won't be any storage. So that is why it's not only important to retain the main channel, but it is also important to retain the tributaries and the ponds that contribute to your main channel. We also looked at Water Framework Directive. What are the flood risk management plans that they're making, the river basin management plans that are being made, and how it is an integrated approach towards, oh, just give me a second, I need to reduce this window. Yeah. Okay, so it's the systems-based approach, and it is one of the biggest frameworks across the world, which promotes catchment-based approach to planning, and it talks about the interdependencies and interactions between ecosystems. So, although we can't say that it's fully there, but it works towards the right principles of ecological working with nature, and I think it's a step in the right direction, and the member states are working towards better understanding of the principles. Now, we also looked at a case study from Shimla where, based on meteorological data, we found that there are a lot of springs that flow through the bedrocks, and they're very, very important because they flow gradually and meet your main stream during the lean period or the summers when you need the water the most. So the next session was by Miss Annalie Kilaninga. She is water governance consultant and facilitator of multi-stakeholder processes. Her session was on power of collaboration, stakeholder engagement in IWRM. She had recorded the session and sent it to me, but since the video is not playing, I'll try and do a quick recap, but I don't know if I can do full justice to it. Um, so um, she talked about designing effective multi-stakeholder partnerships for integrated water resource management. The rationale for collaboration is coming from the need and the fact that no single stakeholder can do it by themselves. You need a lot of partnerships to come into place and a lot of stakeholders to come together to be able to do it. And then how do you effectively design multi-stakeholder partnerships? So there are a lot of tools and practices that we talked about on how this can be done better. We also talked about the process model for stakeholder engagement, which wherein you have to initiate the process, you need to get into a bit of adaptive planning, collaborative action, and reflective monitoring, and then this goes on like an iterative process. And then there is this link from Wageningen University that is available on the slide, and you can take a look at this. So basically, they have this course on stakeholder engagement as well. She also shared this vision for Hindon Basin in the Hindon sub basin in the Ganga Basin, and through Water Resources Group 2030 and other stakeholders, the groups came together and formulated this vision statement for a balanced and healthy water system and ecosystems to support life, flora, fauna, people through integrated and participatory river basin management. So partners, they looked at a lot of management issues in the basin, like pollution from domestic sources, industries, agriculture, and how the hydrology is changing because of all these. So then there are options for, processes for institutionalizing stakeholder engagement in IWRM. So some organizations just form these platforms and let them be, but then it's always better to institutionalize them, say with a municipality or with a state government, so that they have their own identity and they're formally recognized. And then there were some suggested actions for follow-up. So that's the recap from the last webinar. Now we go on to the present webinar and the need for IWRM-based approach. So basically, we all understand that there are hydrological cycles that operate from the global scale to the local scale. And similarly, when you look at the catchment level, there also you have a lot of these cycles of operating. You have a lot of inflows into the system. These can be in the form of, oops, go back, yeah. So these can be in the form of rain or snow or surface water inflow or groundwater inflow. But generally speaking, your inflows are going to be higher than your outflows from the catchment, and they'll also probably be better in quality as compared to the outflows. So you can also have some discharges from upstream cities or villages, and then you can have losses to evapotranspiration as well. And there are these internal loops that function at the level of the catchment, and they are very important because you need to close these loops as much as possible. Now, from the climate perspective, there are floods, droughts, cyclones, which can impact your catchment. Floods, because with climate, the rainfall events are likely to increase and their intensity is also likely to increase. So if you have an increased intensity, what this will lead to is much more rainfall in your catchment over a shorter period. So this will lead to more flooding. And also because the water will come and go so fast, if you don't retain it in your catchment, it will not be able to percolate enough, and that will lead to droughts during your summertime. And cyclones are also there. Then you have water conflicts which are going to come about because of these issues. So what are the measures that we need? So the first measure that we can look into is, we need to know when a flood is happening. So some of the solutions for that involve formulation of early warning systems. So this is a case study from Ebro River Basin in Europe, where the entire catchment has been instrumented, and real-time monitoring values are fed into a software which is able to tell you where you have enough rainfall to lead to a possible flood, and then it can warn the stakeholders before the flood actually occurs. And a similar thing has been done in Ukai Basin in Surat also. So Ukai Basin basically has this issue of being located on the mouth of Tapi River's confluence with the sea. And so if there is a high tide and then there is also heavy rainfall in the catchment, then you have an issue of flooding in the city. So a similar initiative through automatic weather monitoring stations and water level monitoring stations was undertaken and connected to a software. So whenever there is enough rainfall in the catchment, an alert is sent out to the residents. I mean, that is a possibility. And the map on the right actually shows how the city can get inundated with various reservoir level capacities. Now, some of the potential pathways can also be through startup inclusion. Now, we all know that our major river basins are managed at the national or the state level. But India also has a lot of smaller basins which are getting flooded annually. Now, the problem here is that, if your smaller basins are getting flooded, they're going to lead to flooding of a larger basin. So you need to start working in a decentralized manner on that also. And for that, I think startups can possibly provide a solution, and you can incorporate sensors for early warning. They can bring in innovation. They can probably have better management systems to work this out. Then you also have options wherein you need disaster shelters. So can startups play a role in providing these kind of shelters? You can have some high grounds which can be managed by these startups. They can provide infrastructure while your main infrastructure is recovering from your storm or your flood. So they can look into solar, electricity, water provisioning, packaged food. And animals and humans, they need higher ground if there is a flood. So can we possibly look at options where these shelter or refuge areas are created, so to say? Then another issue from the climate perspective is from droughts, as I said, and forests can provide the biggest solution to this, because as I mentioned in my previous webinar also, they help retain a lot of runoff and the precipitation in the catchment before it enters the channel, and uh, the precipitation flows slowly, so it reaches the channel slowly. Now, so this is a case study from Rajasthan. So basically, what you have here is this person by the name of Chatar Singh. So what he does is that he works with the community, and he goes into these desert areas, and he looks into recharging and revival of ponds that have either dried out, or where catchment areas are available, they do bunding and retain water during monsoons. And then when you have water in this water body, then cultivation can be done along with the villagers, and then the revenue that is generated from this cultivation is used for meeting all the costs that were incurred. But what is special about this case study is that it makes it a more financially viable option, to revive water bodies. Now, looking at the urban context. So as I said, it's usually integrated urban water management, or IUWM. Now here we are calling it integrated urban water resource management. The reason being because I think that unless you start looking at water in all its forms, like water supply, wastewater, stormwater as a resource, then you do have a problem in getting the message across to the people. So IWRM is functional at the catchment level, and your urban resource management will be functional at the urban scale, which might be within the catchment. And as we all know, water is not limited by boundaries, so you need to look at the regional and local linkages between the catchment and the urban area as well. Now, a lot of countries, including India, are heading towards around 50% urbanization. So that is why I think this component of integrated urban water resource management becomes very important. If you look at sort of a definition, if we call it, then it calls for alignment of urban development to achieve social, economic, and environmental goals. So water supply, sanitation, stormwater, and wastewater management are part of a cycle linked to land use planning and economic development. So look at it holistically. Now, similar cycle also functions at the level of your urban areas. You have inflows, you have outflows. Specifically in urban areas, your inflows are going to be more and your outflows lesser, and your inflows would be better in quality and your outflows might be worse in quality. So we take these inflows in the form of storm water, surface water bodies, groundwater. We use it for water supply. Wastewater is generated, which is either treated or untreated, and then it is discharged into surface and groundwater sources. Now, what is very important here is to understand that there is a loop being formed here. This loop, there is a cycle which operates even at the urban level, and we need to work towards closing this loop. So if we look at this slide, so broadly speaking, you have your water resource, your storm water, your water supply, your wastewater, and your storm water. These are part of an integrated cycle. You have inflows into the system and you have outflows into the system, but you have to try and recover as much as possible and close this loop. So you have to try and recover the water that is lost, try and recover the nutrients that are being lost from the system. And sanitation, waste, and wash, they have interlinkages with the system. Wash means water, sanitation, hygiene. Now we look at some key principles of integrated urban water resource management. So all parts of the water cycle, natural or constructed, they need to be perceived as an integrated system. So what happens is that our cities take water, we use it, we generate wastewater, and we discharge it into the water bodies. But this is not a sustainable system. It's more like a linear water flow. But we need to look at closing the loop. How do you recover your wastewater? How do you recover the nutrients that you're losing in that wastewater? How do you recover and retain your stormwater and close the loop of water cycle? Now, another principle talks about considering all requirements of water, anthropogenic as well as ecological. So a lot of countries have this priority ranking. For example, drinking water will be the highest priority, followed by irrigation, hydropower, navigation, industrial, and other uses. But we find that ecological uses are mostly missing from this list. So let's do a quick poll here. Should we consider ecological uses as priority uses? So I'll quickly launch a poll here for you. I hope I'm audible now.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So should we consider ecological uses? Can you please vote on this? I hope it's, yeah. Okay, so just a few more seconds on this. 96% so far are saying that yes, ecological uses should be considered. Okay, so I think we have a good response on this. We'll head back to the presentation now. So
The other principle says that we need to involve all stakeholders in the planning and decision making process, like we discussed under IWRM. Similarly, we need to bring in all the stakeholders and all the departments and the community and the youth and the women groups, the marginalized communities. Everyone needs to be brought together and a dialogue needs to be started. And at the core of this needs to be the people, the community. Another principle is to match water quality with water use. Municipalities are supposed to supply at least 135 to 150 LPCD of treated water in our taps every day. Now, we need to think, do we really need this treated water for all our users? The figure on the right gives a breakup of the various uses of water that a person has. Now, if you look at it, the dark blue ones indicate, the uses that can be met through an alternative water supply, which is probably not that well treated, like municipal supply. For example, if you have a supply coming from a neighboring Baudi or a well or a tanka. So these uses like washing clothes and house cleaning and others, they can be met through say if you even have pond water coming from an alternate supply. The green ones indicate uses that can be met through reusable water or treated wastewater. For example, that can be used for toilet flushing. And then there are certain uses like drinking, cooking, for which you actually need treated water. So it is very important to match the quality of water with the water use. This will help manage better manage.
he is getting full supply from the dam. Will that be more resilient, or a city that is receiving water from 6 or 7 different sources? Will that be more resilient? Can you vote on that? So far, we have 93% saying that city B will be more resilient. Right, so 5 more seconds we'll give for this. Okay, so we have 88% saying that city B will be more resilient. So basically, another principle of IUWRM says that we strive for sustainability, balance social, economic, and environmental needs. And the best way to do this is to reduce your dependence on a single ecological use. So don't pressurize the resource with all your requirements. Diversify your water portfolio. Like, for example, you can have some water coming from your centralized supply, but then can you complement it with the water from your rainwater harvesting tank, or say from a pond nearby? Or can we reuse treated wastewater? So if you look into these options to complement your municipal supply, then you become more resilient. What is also important is that when we pressurize the ecological systems, the flows or the environmental flows, they reduce and they impact the ecology adversely. So flows around 20% should be retained. Now, this is a case study from some cities. For example, Gujarat has a policy wherein they encourage reuse of wastewater for industrial use. Maharashtra has a policy wherein they support use of wastewater for power plants. And Singapore, we all know, is the leader in this. They had a policy around the 1960s where they had all the industries uh, should use an inferior quality water, not the treated water supply. And now they have this new water. It is a brand for treated wastewater. A part of this is used for drinking and potable purposes, and a part of this is also used for non-potable purposes. So presently, 40% of the city's supply comes from this new water since quite a few years now. And by 2060, they target that desalination and new water will make up to around 85% of the city supply. Now, another option in the urban areas to prevent issues related to flooding and drought, which will increase because of climate change, is forest. We all know that in urban areas you cannot have that bigger forest, but then you can have urban forest. So these are essentially all your trees, your small pockets of greens, your parks that can be developed as your green buffer to retain the water that comes about. What you also have is spawn cities. Like I told, we can retain water through these green and blue sponges. Then you have sustainable urban drainage systems, which can help puncture hard surfaces and retain the runoff. And we also have traditional water harvesting systems, which have helped us survive through centuries of droughts. And all these measures, along with a lot of catchment management and forestry, can help us reduce the peak of the runoff. So we look at a case study from Catskill, Delaware catchment. Basically, what happens is that Catskill, Delaware is where 90% of the New York water supply comes from. So the city entered into a partnership with the stakeholders in the catchment to take up certain measures. One of them was that they purchased a lot of land in the catchment. The other was that they regulated activities in the watershed that were causing issues like water pollution, or maybe were threatening future security of water supply. And they even made payment to the communities to implement measures that can help protect the watershed. Now, why this is important is that it highlights an approach where you can do participatory management of the catchment. You do not necessarily need a water treatment plant to give you clean water. This case study got New York City a waiver on the need to install a water treatment plant. So with community participation, they were able to ensure that the water remains clean enough to supply without providing an additional water treatment plant. So that is why this case study is important, because you don't really have to depend on your your gray infrastructure to secure your water supply and treat it well. You also need to focus on your green infrastructure. And if your green infrastructure is not in place, your gray infrastructure will not be able to function. This is the last case study that we look at. This is a very famous and a very important case study. It's for Cheonggyecheon River or stream in Seoul, South Korea. So this stream was we have in most of our developing countries, were getting converted into a wastewater drain. So around 1940s, they covered it for sanitation purposes. And a highway, a 10-lane roadway and a 4-lane highway were also constructed here. But around the turn of the century, they realized the need for a green space in the city, and a movement to revive this stream was initiated, and the entire roadway and the highway, catering to around 1.7 lakh vehicles per day, were removed, and this green lung with a blue stream was restored. And the reason why this is such an important case study is that because this river now acts as a flood buffer for the city. And what it shows us is that it's not that if you've lost a river or a lake or a water body, you cannot revive it. We have to start with protecting the water bodies that we already have. But then those that are lost, there is a possibility of reviving them. So the next webinar, we'll be looking at sustainable development goals, tracking the global climate agenda, and India's role in the climate scenario. We'll look at some case studies and we'll have a guest speaker. So this is actually important. The Young Climate Leaders platform, this is an initiative that we've started through the organization. So those of you who want to join in, please join in. And this platform, we are working to get into some partnerships with some organizations based in America, and we'll do some peer learning activities with our group and their group. So thank you very much, and these are the email IDs on which you can contact us. And now we have the presentation by Mr. Anand Malligawar. Anand, you want to start? I'll make you the presenter.
No, everyone. And basically, my name is Anand Malligawar from Bangalore. Now, entire session we heard that, what are the possibilities available, and how we can integratedly manage our water resources, everything. It is a fantastic presentation, and thank you, Mesha Madam, that you brought all like-minded people into one nice webinar, and also a lot of learnings from your presentation. Thank you so much, and thanks for all the participants, for your time also. See, now time is that, for example, other countries and total nation-wise that we live it, and we will come to straight away Karnataka, Bangalore, right? Karnataka, Bangalore, and Indian political condition, Indian administration, how authorities are responding, and see, we were talking about stakeholders, right? There are lake development authorities, river management, all these people, how much they are interested, how much they are involving, how about our financial condition, and our mindsets of officials and other things. If you check that, we are in a very, very pathetic condition, in fact. And what like a Bangalore kind of city, straight away we talk, we had about 1,800 lakes. Out of 1,800 lakes, 240 is left. Out of 240, around 80 lakes are visible now. And also, we were talking about multiple resources for the water. We are getting 1,650 million liters of water per day from 180 kilometers from Mysore by pumping 8 stage, that is a Kaveri river basin. And second source is for us borewell only. There are only two sources. Borewells, if you see 1996, 1995 time when I came to Bangalore, every 15, 20, maximum within 100 feet, we used to get a good quality of the water, best potable water. Today, they all reached about 1,700, 1,800. And out of 1,800 lakes, left out not even 1/4, as well as because of unplanned urbanization and lot many, rush of the city, and our mindset, our habits are changed. Because of that, now we have a huge problem of, drinking water. And also, Bangalore is the lake city. Bangalore was the lake city, not is. Today, it is no more. And we had about 4 rivers like Kumudavati, Rishibhavati, Arkavati, like that. Those rivers, like Madam shown in one of the project, they're all become drainage pines now, like that. And there is no proper, they destroyed all catchments, streams, everything. There is no, like if you check in a Google map, you can't find anything because most of them are closed, buried, and high-rise buildings has been closed. Okay. Now, the point is that we have a lot of ideas, scientific systems, techniques, everything, where we can learn from global level, and a lot of countries which they are implemented in various countries, and they are managing very well, right? But in country like India, okay, we have idea, everything, but who will do it? That is the big question here. Whether government will do it, whether independents will do it, and whether are they ready to listen to us, or they are ready to engage with us. That is the biggest question in country like India. So that cause, and also now no more time for trial and error, right? Because 2025, first Bangalore will become a zero water city, and 2000, I think 1918 itself, South Africa, Cape Town is become a zero water city. There is a, then second is this, then not only this, by 2030, the entire 21 cities across the country will going to be zero water city. And just imagine if we start, thinking, logically working, theoretically, and studying and all, I don't think around 2 decades are enough. Subsequently, and authorities, if you see governments, day by day, they are going more worsen than the improving. Okay. In such cases, what we can do, how we can take up this initiative, like that I started thinking. And my idea is like individual level, we can do rainwater harvesting, the best solution, best option, because 1,350 millimeter rainwater falls like Bangalore city. We should catch roof water. We should also, within our compounds and other thing, we should start, percolating that water. That is the first best option as a individuals, right? Okay, governments, authorities, it is a big subject. I don't want to get into that. And second, best we can do is we can utilize the water responsibly. Morning when we wash our face to till go back to bed, let's use responsibly in such a that where we can. It is not clear, madam? You can't? You cannot able to hear? Madam? Now you can able to hear, madam? now you can able to hear, madam. Madam, can you unmute? Hello. 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 Hello, madam. Hello. Hello. Madam, can you unmute? Madam, you can able to hear me? Hello. So, sorry for the inconvenience. So, biggest issue is that last 70 years, 72 years, we have been just time passed and talking about theory, formulas, this country, that country, and other thing. But end of the day, we have reached in such a level that where we can able to, we will not have potable water to drink. Like just 6 to 9 months or 1 year back, Chennai is become zero water, and you've seen all the scenarios what happened and how they close industry, everything. This way, from 2016 onwards, I started working on the module that see each city has got its specialty. Some cities with a lakes, some cities with a rivers, some city with a nearby lot of peatlands and other wetlands and all. Like Kolkata kind of cities are with wetlands and other thing. So like based on cities, if we study, then Bangalore, I come to know that better we can start with the lakes. Lakes are lungs of the earth, and also lakes are not only surface water; they also slowly recharge our aquifers. So why we have reached from 100 feet to just 700 to 800 feet is because of destroying the lakes and streams, then catchment. And if you see, beauty of the Bangalore is all lakes are, most of them are interconnected. They overflow each other. So that way, I started my journey of lakes. I took about years together time to visit about 180 lakes and to understand the catchments and lake, each lake, how they overflow and other all the aspects. I spent my time. I did a research, and 2017 onwards, I started working on lakes. Now, if you see, there are three type of lakes. One is urban, one is semi-urban, one is rural lakes. Like urban lakes, if you see, any city, not only Bangalore, any metro cities or tier 2, tier 3 cities, most of them are encroached. Most of them are encroached in such a way that in urban cities, you can't even clear the encroach because lot of buildings, lot many roads, like it is not encroachment by the civil lanes. It is also encouragement by the governments to create a roads, all those things. They encouraged and they built a infrastructure. And second, urban lakes are highly contaminated. Contamination not only from the people, it is from industries, offices, residential, everything they contaminated. Nowadays we use all imported shampoo, soaps, detergents, lot of chemicals, lot many things we use, and we have contaminated the urban lakes. And here only possibility is in a urban lake is we should utilize grey water, and we should purify that, and we should fill up the lake. That is the option left out. Say for example 1600 millions of liter what we are pumping, just we utilize it. Humans are like a just converter of from crystal water to grey water. That is what we do. Just we leave it to like a Rushbavati and other rivers, they are become a big sewage rivers now, and full they are burning, frothing, and they are joining into Kaveri basin. From Kaveri basin it is going into food crops, and from there it is joining again oceans. So this way what we have to do is we should purify this grey water, then we should put it into lakes. Lakes supposed to have natural biological sewage treatment sort of thing, like STP, huge investment. Government don't have money, they says, and a lot of operating cost, lot of chemicals used, and it is depending upon operator mindset whether process will be stable or not. So that is why we should utilize with a wetland concept. And next is semi-urban lake. Semi-urban lakes is partially enclosed, means they enclose the land, but there are no much buildings, much roads or anything. Like urban areas, like a Majestic is a 1800 acres, like a Dharmambudhi lake, which it's supposed to cater Bangalore, drinking water. Today it has become complete city bus stand. There are a lot of stadiums, there are a lot of big playgrounds they created. But now it is very difficult to remove them, because not only governments can remove. If they plan to remove, then there is a lot of opposition from the public and the other stakeholders and all, and there is a huge political pressure also. It's very difficult for authorities, governments to clear them in an urban area. But semi-urban area, there is an encroachment land. If you live today, next 5 to 10 years, they will become same scenario. Also, contamination. The semi-urban lakes are little bit contaminated because of in all the villages, surrounding places and all, this all cities started expanding, like a Lakeview, like apartments, this, that, and all. They started, industries started coming down, and also because of this lot of concrete roads inside the cities, and the entire water is grey water is directly coming into the lakes now without any treatment. So slowly there, and increasing water holding capacity is a very important criteria here. Semi-urban lakes, we have a space, we should make it a best place to increase water holding capacity, so that not only in a surface like birds, butterflies, cows, cattle, and agriculture purpose, and they are also sink the carbon. They also produce a lot of oxygen also. In fact, wetlands are very good for the sinking carbon and increasing the water, and also bees, birds, butterflies, cows, cattle, and also they maintain the microclimate. That is semi-urban. Even if you go to deep rural, they are also partially encroached by the farmers and other surroundings like panchayat and other authorities. Also, they are equally contaminated because of bad practices of agriculture, right? Like pesticides, like all these things, like fertilizers they use. Because of that only, all soil is got contaminated. From there, whenever rain falls, then entire lakes also, village rural lakes also got contaminated. In fact, in rural, earlier we had a mud roads and other thing. Because of our modernization of life, we went for concrete, like rural development. Villages has to become clean, and that way to get something we have compromised something. Like because of those concrete roads, all canals and all, they all come into the lake. Then they also spoiled. So here also we wanted to increase water holding capacity. Like mainly now I am working on urban and semi-urban lakes. For example, if you see, I'll going to talk about two case studies. One is Chikkannagamangala, which is about 47 acres lake. It is like a semi-urban lake, and if you see this entire lake, there is no single drop of water, and because of all the streams has been closed, and people just they dumped debris, building waste, everything in this, and also there is no water holding capacity. So such lakes we are trying to take up, and we are completely desilting it. We are completely creating a bund, and we wanted to hold more water, right? So for that, what we do is we take up the that lake revenue map, and we do the survey. We demark the lake, and after that, for this we are trying to take government support, but they take long time, and also huge issues are there in coordination, because of that we are only utilizing them for survey to mark and give it to us. And also lakes, like when we identify the lake, we do boundary marking, then we check the complete catchments and what are the streams, where are the possibilities to bring in water. There, what we are doing is, wherever odd lands are there, most of them are encroached by the encroachers, surrounding farmers or somebody, and whatever water body you can see, that much is left out. So what I am doing is 60% water body I am keeping as it is, then 30 to 40% surrounding areas we are trying to convert it to forest, so that water body we are increasing the 3 to 4 times capacity by desilting. And also so many people are talking about, like, if you increase more deep, then percolation will be very high and it will not be ecological way, all those things. But we have also taken a lot of precautions. We do more desilting and we control the percolation and all other things. I'll going to talk next level. And wherever design is taking place, there should be enough water holding capacity. There should be enough forest all around with a native species of fruits, medicinal plants, as well as like a flowering native big flowering trees. And we should not use like too much of like ornamental grass, Mexican bushy and all, and small plants and all. If you use, there is no much use, because when lake has to sustain, means there has to be proper ecologically built. And also, if you see a few designs of this lake is, whatever desilting is taking place, there are 3 layers of soil, like top soil, middle soil, and gravel. Top soil is rich nutrient, thousands of years it will have a like a dissolve lot many fishes, leaves, everything. Those things we take it and utilize it in a forest area, so that we do not require like a fertilizer and other thing. Like this is a rich one, and a rich soil we are utilizing it. As well as then second layer, whatever comes, we do bunds all around the lake, so that once jogging track is created, there people will start coming there, so that there will be less nuisance when it is connected to people. As well as when we all around the jogging track, we cannot have further encroachment, because if they want to encroach, then these they have to dug up the tracks, so that it is a pokayoke in Japanese language we call mistake proofing. Once you create a walking track, jogging track, sudden in the end of the private lands, edge of the private lands, so that no people will be encroaching. This way we used to like design the lake. As well as if you see particular bunds, like a main bund, then we keep it 5 feet for trees. Like a lake side, there will be medium canopy trees, and the other side it will be higher canopy trees, and in between walking. And we also do little very small stone pitching to control the erosion. And also there will be second step we are creating for safety purpose. Here we will have shrubs and herbs and fruit, all these varieties, so that these walkers, joggers, kids and all, if suddenly they should not get into the deeper lake, so that there will be on safety point. So, and also this is the place where lot of birds, they can nest, and they can also have a food for them. And the slopes what we create in the lake is a very natural slope. And if you see other all the stakeholders lakes, they are 1:2 they do sudden slope. When water is filled, there is a safety problem of people, animals, and other things. They can't move, and for kids also, as well as when birds wants to do fishing or they want to sit and relax. I don't think there is a place. It is a full of stone pitching. And also, in fact, here in the slopes we are planting vetiver grass. Vetiver grass is the best for the soil erosion control, and it also rejuvenates the soil. It purifies the water, and also it is a good fodder for the surrounding cows and cattle, so that there will be enough food for, because such a 47 acres lake, then there will be a lot of like a grazing place it was. And one moment, if you take up that entire land and create a water body, then surrounding farmers will be affected. They will not have a place. So that here, if you put a huge grass and other thing, it will do multiple job. They also remove this grass and they can use it as a fodder. And the best quality fodder is like a vetiver. Vetiver is one of the Ayurvedic kind of thing, so that all surrounding cows can produce a good quality of the milk. So that is why, if you see a walking track outside the lake side, there will be big bushy trees. Then second is medium canopy and a small little stone pitching with a Vadalia plantation in between gaps, so that the stones will not become hot. So it will be covered with the Vadalia plants, and Vadalia plant is so nice that it will control soil erosion, does not require any maintenance, and also 9 months it will have a yellow flower, so that it attracts a lot of pollinators, and it attracts a lot of pollinators, so that surrounding farmers' yield can be increased, and also ecology can be balanced. So my designing concept is ancient way, ecological way, so that they can sustain longer time. If we do it in a very modernized way, I don't think they can sustain. And also, second step what we have created is only safety also, and all these fruit plants, trees plants, and also there will not be problem. So that third step is like a natural slope where you can, anybody will not have a safety issues. So this is what I designed. And if it comes to main to other farmer side land, where odd places we create a forest. We create a forest like we have a grassland, we have a Miyawaki forest. Miyawaki forest, Japanese method of forestation, which it grows 10 times faster, 30 times denser, and also 100% ecological. And also it is a mini nursery to germinate surrounding. Like these whatever 150 in variety of herbs, shrubs, middle canopy and higher canopy, they grow fast, they leave fruits. And as you know, like a spreader of the seeds are wind, rain, cows, cattle, as well as birds. So that if you have so much of variety here, they will be spread across, and surrounding about 50-100 kilometers, species of more plants will going to increase. So that way, and also we can have a again walking track towards forest side, and there will be 2 canopy plants, and also we can have a wetland trees along with the vetiver grass, where like Arjuna and other plants, they grow in water also, they grow in a dry condition also. Like that, we also utilized it as a wetlands. And if you see, we are trying to create natural slopes with the steps and other thing, so that there will be more water holding capacity. Because Bangalore kind of thing, every year earlier we used to have a good rains, but because of climate change and lot many issues, maybe 2 years, 3 years, there will not be rain, and suddenly huge rain will come. So if we have a huge capacity holding, like one of the lake, this, it can hold about 11,80,000 cubic meter of water, so that once in a flood time it got filled up, it can also mitigate the flood. It can also hold surface water for birds, butterflies, bees, like cows, cattle, and also recharge the underground water. So a huge amount of water can be held, and next 2-3 years it will not go dry. That is the theme we are following. And also we do a lot of desilting and creating as a reservoir type. And also it is not just like a water reservoir. It will have a grassland, it will have a Miyawaki forest, it will have a traditional forest, it will also have a wetland. That is the concept we are working. This is one of the lake, like a Nanjapura lake. Recently we rejuvenated. In the just in COVID time, we did not stop the work. By taking all the precautions, we completed. If you see this design of this lake, wherever these 3 compartments I created, and this is the highest water inflow area. And also if you see this layout side, and here there is no pipes. Here I have created one canal, beautiful canal, and with the check dams, and there are a lot of wetland plants planted. Then this water comes here, and here also I have kept a buffer water zone, as well as here. So what happens once water comes, they should not directly enter into the lake, because now this is a like a village type of thing, and already layout is here. Tomorrow there might be chances of releasing sewage and all. So that is why what I did is, first water will come, then desilting will like a silt will be trapped here. Second, again silt will be trapped. Third will be trapped. Here already we planted like lot of aquatic plants like horse grass, canna, like lotus lilies, and like that wetland plants we have planted. So entire water will get like a like plastic, thermocol, everything will be trapped here. Then only this water will enter into the main lake, so that you need not to clean main lake always. And tomorrow if there is any sewage entry starts, that time maybe we think that we should not leave that, this and all. We cannot go against river, because people will leave the sewage, authorities will be negligent. Like that only Bangalore lakes are spoiled. But this is the area whereas you can purify the water and it will come to lake. And also I have created no inlets directly entering into the lake. And if you see one more right side, it will go to Kalyani. From there it will get settled, then get purified, then it will go. So like that, this is one of the lake we created just now. And if you see like catchment wise, Bangalore city, then we call it is I broken Bangalore into 4 zones: east, west, north, south. And east there are about 11 streams. And if you see like this only, 11 streams, 45 lakes I am trying to rejuvenate by 2025. You see, this is Gavi Lake. I rejuvenated April 2019. This is Vabsandra. It is April 2018. Then Kalasnali, my first lake, I rejuvenated in 2017. So Gavi overflows to Vabsandra. Vabsandra overflows to Kalasnali. Kalasnali to it goes to Bandinal Sandra. And this I am keeping it in 2021. From there, like this stream-wise lake, I am trying to rejuvenate, so that like entire all the interlinked lakes, all the like overflows I have opened up, and we are trying to create in such a way that all these lakes, like stream-wise, they all flow into the one bigger lake called Hennagara Lake. It is about 900-acre lake. See, like Bellanduru, Varturu, such lakes with a lot of streams, lot of lakes, they overflown into this and they all contaminated. Government is trying to fix it, but they could not able to do it, because these all contaminated water source itself we should lock it. Source itself we should rejuvenate and settle it, so that less time, less cost, we can able to rejuvenate these lakes. Like that, stream wise I started, so that this lake will be saved automatically. Like you can see here, Gavi is over, Vabsandra is over, Kalasnali is over, Bandinal Sandra. From there it goes to Hennagara. Then second stream, Hulimangla, Nanjapura, Jigni, then it goes. So now I have completed Nanjapura in stream 2. I am working on Hulimangla and Jigni, so that it will be done in a systematic way. See, this same Nanjapura lake, it was dry like 30-40 years. There is no single drop of water, because all the catchments and whatever streams have been damaged. Now we opened up, and this lake has a water. So this is the survey map which we have entirely, we have cleared the encroachment and everything. And this is the design I created, like here boulders, jelly, sand and other things, like how and the outlet will be, and how forest will be all around. This is how we design. And also this was like this dry lake, and over a period of time we did a desilting and everything, and we created this way. And these are all these slopes are natural slopes, and it is a shallow lake, so that there will be good amount of water holding capacity. There is a safety for people, cows, cattle, everything. And also there will be ecologically, see, if you see this entire slope, it is very natural slope, gentle slope, so that any animals, kids, anybody can walk in here. And there is enough grass for the surrounding like cows, cattle, they can just cut and take it away, and they can. And also you see the water quality in next, and it is a crystal clear water with a, and maybe 40 years it was a dry lake. Now with a 2-3 rains we could able to get so much of water. We have also put a scale with a light pole so that it is a people safety. How much feet water is there, we have indicated in numbers. Also it is the information system for us also, particular rain, how much water came. And this is these 2 case studies I talked about. And before getting into my all the lakes, I'll just play you one video right now, how Bangalore lakes are right now. Just I'll show you, and you see here. Madam, you can able to see the screen? Hello?
Yes, I can see the screen.
You can able to see this video, madam?
Yeah.
The screen is open, right? You can see, right?
Yeah. When you see the video, it's not.
Sorry? You can see this particular lake. It is in a center city, and you see how much plastic, thermocol, everything is entered into main water body. Then this grassland, whatever is there above this, grass is started growing. And if you see top layer, it is with grass, and it looks like a land. It is not land. If you just keep a lake there, and there is a huge water in between. So this kind of, like urban lakes, you see the water quality. It is in center city. And when I visited, I asked people about 25 years, 30 years back, people used to drink water from this. Now you can't even touch, you can't even stand there. And these are all the lakes, like 99% of the lakes are in this condition. And if you see, huge water bodies have been spoiled. And these are all completely with hyacinth, grass, and pet bottles, everything it is with sewage. You see this lake. And everybody talks about, right, rejuvenating the lakes, rejuvenating these water bodies and all. But actually, rejuvenation is, we should really work on water. See, such a huge, this was a village surrounding, within 25 years, it became like this. And the entire, those sewage, everything is left into this lake. And you can see one more lake here, and it overflows to this lake, and that lake also is in similar situation. And you can see one more here. Okay, so why I shown this, these are all the lakes are in such a pathetic condition, but no need of worrying. See, we have a power of nature, a power of wetlands. You see, this is similar one of the lake. You just watch this video also. And this particular lake, you just see how this water is changing. See, this wetland is an inlet. From here, full I have trapped. You can see here.
The video is yet to play.
From here, not playing, madam. And you can see here this particular area. Now you can see, right?
I can see the screen, but not the video.
Not the video.
What about others? The video? Is the video visible to you? Yeah, now it's visible.
Visible, right? You see how water is changing. You see, this is done just about 3 months back. It's all possible. This is one of the lake called Harosiddapura Lake. It was in a same condition, which I showed you a video. Worse than that. We have done a resilting. We have created a lot of different compartments. And without having anything. Like for example, you see here, without any equipments, without any chemical, without any mechanical anything, electricity, we have converted this lake into this. See, for example, like you can see here, this is a basic area wetland. Basic wetland. From here, I have put a just boulders in the point. Here, I have put a just boulders in the point, so that boulders will trap all plastic, thermocol, plastic, all those things. Then it will come to first compartment. Then you can see here one bund with the boulders, jelly, sand, with the aquatic plants I have planted. Then second compartment, it will get settled. When it comes to third compartment, you can see how it is converted into gray slowly. Then again I have put one more compartment here, and here obviously there are a lot of wetland plants, lotus lilies, and lot of plants we have left naturally. When it comes to this main lake, you can see the water quality. It is clear. So zero maintenance, and to do this, hello, you can able to hear me, right, madam?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just asking, is this the quality of the inflow? The gray
Yes.
water, the muddy water, this is the inflow, right?
Yes. You see, I'll just hold here. Okay, you see here. Now you can see arrow mark, right? You can see my arrow, right? Hello,
Yeah.
madam. You can see cursor, right? Yeah. See, this is a inflow area. Inflow area from the city. Huge, about maybe 0.6, 0.8 MLD will come here. And here in a small place, whereas I put a boulder and other thing, because I did not use any like grills and other materials and other thing, because they will have self life. Because of huge methane and chemical, they will get rusted and they will get choked everything. But here I use boulders. In this area itself, this plastic, thermocol, everything trapped. Maybe weekly once, twice, our guy will remove those things. And the first compartment is a settling tank, right? And if you see slowly, then it flows in, right? Then this is a second compartment where I created. Here there is, you can see white line. This is about 10 feet height, big boulders, jelly, sand, and aquatic plants I planted. Whereas water will get purified here, and like biomass, everything will be removed here, and the nutrients also consumed like NPK, and it will come to this compartment. And you can see next compartment I created. From here, bund, slowly that clear water will come to this third compartment. And you see the color is changed now, gray, right? And from here, this is a comfortably get settled. From water, 1 liter from there to reach here inside this water, it will take at least 2-3 days time. By that time it comes to main lake, you can see the color of the water. And also first compartment, you will have a huge smell, huge, like a dirt and other thing. When it comes to second, smell will be reduced. Third compartment, you can hold the water in hand, right? And here, whatever greenery you can see here, this is a native, whatever grass and tiny plants, everything were there, hundreds of years. Just I did the desilting. And again I retained these all the mats type of things outside. Again, after desilting, everything is over. Then again, bicha diya usko. Then I put a mat back that. So these are all the plants where they are keeping a water in a best quality. And you can see here, this is just 3 months back I completed this lake. And also wherever forest department, they planted trees, bamboos, everything is retained. And I created small islands wherever trees were there. There will be a lot of birds, lot of huge birds are there. So this is one of the case study, which very successfully, you can see here, aerial view. So this is the inlet. This is a main lake. And also I created provision here also, where my cursor is moving. There is one more inlet is there, but there is no residential apartments, but there are already apartments they are building. Next, if they leave the sewage water, then that will also get purified and come to main lake. And also here also left side also I have created same 2 steps. There also it will get purified, again come. So that this way we can, gray water we can convert into crystal clear water, because gray water is not bad for us. It is a boon for us, whether rains are there or not. But lake should have full of water. It means the best quality water. To convert into best quality, first we should remove thermocol, plastic, PET bottles. Then we should remove biomass and other thing. Then we should remove nutrients. Then we should leave it to main lake so that it will get nurtured with the rainwater and this. And there will be natural wetlands where they consume all these NPK, and algal blooms will not be there. Then dissolved oxygen will be increased. So this is all happened. This entire 35 acre, I could able to desilt about 8 feet of the soil and created all around these bunds. This was not there. Complete all around bunds. And everything together, we have spent only 40 lakhs, whereas government spends 15 to 16 crores. They take about 2 to 3 years. In a pandemic time, this lake I started from January 27th. By June end, I was ready with this lake. June end, we received good rains, and water is started flowing in. So these are all the possibilities available. And also I'll go to now presentation. Okay, this is my first lake of 36 acre lake. It is executed with the just less than 95 lakhs, less than 45 days. We removed about 4,60,000 cubic meter of the soil, and we used about 4 earth movers, about 6 trucks, 1 JCB, 10 laborers, and in 45 days we can able to complete. If you see this entire road, it was not there, which we have created. And here if you see this particular cursor area, this is a fully lotus and lilies. It is about 1.5 acre wetland, which they keep water pure, and also they reduce the evaporation rating. They increase dissolved oxygen. It is the best food for the fishes inside, and also it is the best economy for the surrounding villagers, that all daily hundreds of lotus will come. They remove the lotus, they sell it up. About 5 to 10 families daily, they are earning about 500 to 1,000 rupees, and they also take care of this wetland, so that it is one of the kind of sustainable module. And there are 5 islands I created. Each island is designed for particular birds, like smaller birds, sparrows, like bigger birds like cows, crows, and other things. And like that, each island is having a different variety of fruits variety. Say for example, this first island, there are a lot of Singapore cherry and lot many plants which they covered canopy, and you will find a lot of sparrows and other things stay here. Like if you see here, this is a traditional forest area. If you see this is a Miyawaki forest area, and this area, it is a grassland. Like that, we have all in one place, so that, and also you will find a lot of wetlands here inside also with a native species, and thousands of years they were there. Those all the plants we retained. So that last 2017 April I started this project. By June 5th, World Environment Day, we planted about 18,000 saplings and created this lake. There was no single drop of water. And September first week in the history of Bangalore, we received the highest rain of Bangalore, and this entire lake got filled up. But 2018, 19, 20, as of now, this photo is taken in May. But as of now, there is no single drop of water, but this lake never went dry, and you can hold the water in hand. You can go to Anand Malligawad YouTube channel, or you can go to my Facebook. You see the water quality, and also how this was dry, how it has been converted in 45 days. I have put all the videos into it. This is the lake where we have engaged community, and last 3-4 years we are maintaining in such a way that there are a lot of birds, like ½ inch to about 3 feet fishes are there. 66 variety birds are there, and it is a best habitat in Bangalore today. And this is my second lake, is a Vabsandra. Vabsandra lake, again you can see the design. This is the inlet. There is no any residential apartments or anything here. Only water is coming. There is a silt settling trap I have made. Then it passes through the pipe. Then the 8 feet area they get settled here. Then it overflows to 16 feet. It overflows to 32 feet. There is one small island here. and one more inlet is coming from village, and which gray water slowly with the wetland plants and aquatic plants, I separated this. By the time it joins this 30 feet area, this entire water will get crystal clear. Within 1 liter water, if you put it here, by the time it reach here 2-3 days, it will get crystal clear. So this is also I have done in a 2018. It is a upper catchment area of Kalasnali Lake. And this Miyawaki forest we have created, whatever desilted mud from here, we created about 2 kilometer bund all around, and we dumped and strengthened the main bund. And also we have put a Miyawaki forest here. This is my second lake. And this is my third lake. It was such a pathetic lake that because of industries and other things, this was in a horrible situation. This lake, it was in a worse than burning and frothing. It was in a gel state. We took up this lake, and here is the inlet. From inlet, there is again a trapping point of like a thermocol, plastic, PET bottles and all. Then it comes, there is a settling tank. Then from there, here it passed through aquatic plants. And here there is a place for just stagnant water. Once this is a treatment area lake without any electricity, chemical, anything. And if you see bigger one, I converted as a rainwater lake. Just I divided 80% rainwater catchment, whatever this here, I connected here. This sewage I separated here. If good rains, this lake is full, then this at least sewage water will slowly flow into this, which purified water, and also it will get nurtured with this aquatic plants. If this lake also full, the sewage water both will go to next lake. Like that I created, and all these lakes are recorded time of less than 60 days, less than 1 crore. We could able to execute these projects. And also this is a one more lake called Gavi Lake. Kalasnali upper catchment is Vabsandra. Vabsandra upper catchment is Gavi Lake. This lake also I created as a step well concept. You can see a lot of steps here. About 2-3 steps are already filled up. This lake also, it is a first catchment lake from this topography. From here it overflows to Vabsandra, Vabsandra to Kalasnali, Kalasnali to Bandarasana. This lake also, you can see stone pitching and everything here. All the debris dumped in surrounding building materials, we utilized it for stone pitching. This entire lake of 3 acres, I could able to do it in a less than 15 lakhs of crowdfunding, and it is a less than 25 days we could able to rejuvenate this lake. And this is one more catchment area, different catchment area. This is near Bannerghatta National Park. Here you will find lot of elephants, deers, and wild animals come for drinking water. In rainy season, there used to be good water amount of water here. In the summer, there is no water at all. It was dry. So this entire lake, we did the desilting from just December 2019 we started. January 5th we completed, and with the God grace, this lake is full capacity filled in just 2 months back. It is a full of capacity, and so that another next 2-3 months, 2-3 years, there will be enough drinking water for the wild animals. This is about 5.5 acres of lake, which is created for a wild animal for drinking water. And this is a Nanjapura lake, which I talked about with a natural filtration system and a better catchment and natural slopes. And there is a refreshment areas, walking track, jogging track created here. Kalyani is created here. All these things are, this also lake, I started from February 11th. By July 1st week, this lake is ready. Means 50 to 60 working days we could able to complete. And this is my, just now I shown Harosiddhapura lake. I started from January 27th and I completed by June 5th. And this worst lake is become a best lake now. And also now I am working with, as I showed you first, 47 acres lake. Here biggest challenge is full of lake is with the trees, because this lake did not have water or anything. Forest department smartly they thought that if we leave empty, then it will become dumped and people will encroach and other thing. Let's have a forest. So they created forest, but we are also smartly creating big islands of forests, and the rest of the area we are going more and more deeper. We are trying to create about 33 feet of water holding capacity, whereas these islands trees combination, like 50% there will be forest, 50% water body, so that there will be a lot of birds, butterflies, and other thing. And this work is in progress. We started this project from July first week. By now, almost we have completed this all 50%, 60% of the work, and another 30 days we're going to finish this entire project. So this is my 8th lake. Other than these 8 lakes, I could able to rejuvenate another 2 lakes. One is Harapnali Lake, one is Kalbaru Lake, with the community engagement and other crowdfunding and all we have done. So in a 3 years time, I could able to do 10 lakes. If you see statistics, like 2016, I spent 1 year time for studying about lakes and looking for the investors and other thing. And 2017, I did a 1 lake, 36 acre, 1.17 crores. I got a funding from my company. I spoken with management and I convinced them. It took a lot of pain to convince like villagers, authorities, like management and surrounding people. And also it was new for me. Being a mechanical guy, ecology and biodiversity and rejuvenating the lakes was a new subject for me. I spent a lot of time on it, and I could able to rejuvenate this lake. 2018, 1 lake with the help of Hewlett Packard, 9 acres lake with the investment of 1 crores. I created this lake. And 2019, I did 2 lakes like Kon Sandra and Gavi I did. And 2020, I am doing now 4 lakes. I have did another 2 I am planning. You see, total 3 years time, I could able to get 19.6 lakhs cubic meters of water capacity I created, right? So this year, and 3.9 in 2019, 1.8 in 2018, 4.6 lakh cubic meter in 2017. So total, if you take like 3 years with 8 lakes, I could able to get about 30 lakh cubic meter water holding capacity. And we have also planted about 50,000 saplings with medicinal plants, fruits, everything mixed. About 6,000 to 8,000 fruit plants we have. And my dream is like 11 streams are there in a east zone. 11 streams, each zone is each stream is got about 3, 4, 2 lakes like that. There are 45 lakes I wanted to rejuvenate. I wanted to plant 5 lakh trees. So this is the aim. I have kept it by 2025. So instead of blaming governments, instead of blaming citizens, blaming ourselves, so I thought how we can, bring back our Bangalore glory. In fact, lot of people are supporting. Now I am not alone. I am also doing a lot of workshops, training programs, and webinars, and so that people also will learn how to rejuvenate in a ecologically, how to rejuvenate in a less cost, less time, and a sustainable way, how to engage the community, how to take confidence of authorities and all these people. So all these things I am training. Now my dream is we are also formed Lake Revivers Collective, Save India 1 lake at a time. Like we are identified about 21 cities which they are going zero water. So trying to work across the country, across the planet, see there's all these water bodies. If we bring back, first is rainwater harvesting, second is all the drainage system, whatever we have, online drainage filtration system we can do, then lakes we can save, then rivers we can save. This way we can have a surplus water in my nation, my planet. So thank you so much for giving opportunity. I am sorry I took so much of time. Now we can ask any questions.
Thank you, Anand. Am I audible? I hope I'm audible now.
Yes, you are audible. Yeah. Yeah.